Welcome back to Maximum News, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, as always, your friendly neighborhood Simpsons kid, Max Derrat, and I'm joined, as always, by Sybsidian of the Triple S League. What's going on, man?
Hello. Things are getting slowly starting to get better and more like not pure chaos
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know if you know, but throwing sacrifices into the warp to appease the chaos gods is really, really expensive.
Oh,
And yeah,
well, I mean, all
yeah.
I do is just sacrifice
And I mean,
sacrifice goats on the altar of Baal, and he seems to be okay with it. It's relatively cheap too.
yeah, no, Crom is a little bit more like, he wants heads, and that's really hard to get these days. Yeah,
I
so
disavow. Hopefully, we don't get canceled for that. But anyway, we're joking. Video game news. That's what you guys are here to hear us talk about. So, got a bunch of pretty decent topics. I imagine in the next week or two, things are going to get pretty intense because of Gamescom. But yeah, we still have 10 days to go until that. But yeah, we got some. I don't know what do we have here. Pretty much just a bunch of bad news or just frustrating news. Oh, wait, no,
it's
there is one piece of good news which we'll get to. So
yeah.
hold on to that. But we'll start with the bad news and get that out of the way. Syb, let's start with this. You know, we've been pretty lucky lately as far as video game adaptations go. There was a period of about 10 or 20 years, maybe even longer than that, where anytime a movie was made out of a video game property, it was a pretty safe bet, like 99.9 times out of 100, that the movie would be absolutely horrible. There wasn't even one that was halfway decent. I mean, for a long time, the one that everybody held up as like okay, it's so cheesy that it's enjoyable, was the original Mortal Kombat. I can't judge because I never saw it, but that's sort of the
No,
sentiment that I
no.
heard.
Before that, the best one was The Wizard.
But does that count?
I
It's
think
not.
I think it
It's not based on a pre-existing property, though.
I well, it's based on gaming, and I think that you allow that in because if we don't have like if you're making if you're making movies about video games, The Wizard was at the state where you couldn't realistically make a movie about a video game because there wasn't enough content, story, and lore for any of the existing games.
I
Does that make
suppose.
sense?
Yeah, well, that makes
Yeah.
sense, but that's sort of within the context of the late '80s, early '90s.
Hmm.
I'm talking about like just like I mean, it's fine if you want to call like video game movies that aren't based off of pre-existing properties video game movies, like Ready Player One, Tron. Yeah,
Hmm.
those are fine. I'm just talking about ones that are based off of pre-existing properties.
Yeah.
And you're right, by the way. Just part of the reason why so many of them weren't particularly good is because they didn't have the lore to them that would translate well to a passive viewing experience as compared to an active playing experience. But
Hmm.
as years have gone by and video games have become more sophisticated, people have not only made games more sophisticated, but made their adaptations better as well. And as a result, we have finally gotten some really, really good adaptations. We got Arcane, we got The Last of Us, we got Castlevania. By the way, Saib, I just finished watching Castlevania on Netflix. Oh my god, it has no right being as good as it is. Some of the
Hmm.
action in that show is some of the best action I've ever seen in anything, let alone animation. It's amazing. What else has there been? The Sonic. I wasn't too huge on the first Sonic movie, but I actually quite like Sonic 2. And then there's one or two other ones that I can't remember off the top of my head, which I'm going to kick myself for not remembering later. Oh, Fallout. Fallout was really good.
Yeah.
But, you know, we're sort of just experiencing that sort of turn away from the common pattern that had been established for the past 20 to 30 years. And as a result, you know, there's inevitably going to be times where somebody takes a video game property and it's still going to suck as much as those old movies sucked, like Alone in the Dark, some of the Resident Evil sequels. Um, God, there's so many of them. Mortal Kombat Annihilation, and a whole bunch of other ones, which I won't spend too much time with. And it seems like the latest in that general trend that we've been trying to break away from is Borderlands. Saib, the trailers for this movie, leading up to its release were horrible enough.
Hmm.
And all the news leading up to the release of those trailers and the release of the movie were not encouraging. The movie was in development, what, like 6 or 7 years ago, it seems like. Um, like maybe not that much, but it's not far off. We should have been having this movie in theaters like 1 or 2 years ago, but they tried to save it behind the scenes, and it seems like they weren't able to because the movie came out today. We're recording this on Friday, and I haven't seen this number of negative reviews for a movie since John Travolta's Gotti. It's horrible. Let's just take a look at some of the ones that are on Rotten Tomatoes right now. Right now on Rotten Tomatoes, it's sitting at a 9% negative rating. I can't remember the last time I saw a movie that had that low of a rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Oh my god. This is the thing. This is how bad. It's that level of bad that so many video game movies have succumbed to. And Borderlands just seems to be the next one. So check this out. Johnny Oleksinsky at New York Post says there's hardly any character development or dramatic peaks and valleys in Borderlands to hold the viewer's interest, even for such a brief runtime. He gives it a 0 out of 4. Bill Abiri from New York Magazine says the choppy action scenes and the lifeless incorporation of the film's settings and backgrounds with the characters' movements smack of post-production shenanigans more than they do of on-set competence. Oh my god. Let's see. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of them. Oh, here's one from the Toronto Star, our country, from Peter Howell. There are still many cinema turkeys headed our way before the year closes, but this sci-fi gobbler mixes inept directing, terrible writing, indifferent acting, and god-awful CGI, and he wrote it as GAWDAWFUL, god-awful CGI, into such stupefying boredom it feels like nothing could top it for badness.
Yeah,
it goes on
this
and
is
on.
this is how I've felt about this movie, like from day one, and it's because the people involved, from the game studio all the way to the people that are involved in the highest points of the um of the Hollywood side of things, they don't understand either gamers, and they don't understand
Yeah.
gamers,
Yep.
and they don't understand the culture around them, and they don't understand what this is. I guarantee you, they are approaching this like this is like connected to the Jumanji game movie that they just came out, because it's the same thing. Like they literally think they don't understand the difference between light board game concepts and an actual video game concept. Like they don't understand that those two things are completely different mediums with completely different technology, with completely different stories and completely different fan bases. And you'd say, well, how is that possible when obviously the studio has been involved so much? The studio is run by a bunch of incompetent morons who don't understand their fan base. And again, this goes back to the topic that a lot of hardcore fans here will know, and that is Mr. I was about to say a wrong name, but it's the fan who covered the game and then got deleted off the internet so hard because they screwed up, and instead of just owning up to their screw up and saying, yeah, sorry guys, we kind of screwed up, this was leaked on our bad, you thought you were chasing this other thing that we did before, but turns out that wasn't the case, and we're sorry, but yeah, we've kind of screwed this up here, and look, we'll just call this a foul and deal with it, and we're sorry. Like, you know, it's not our it's not our fans' fault. Turns out that they didn't do that, of course, and I don't want to get into the story again, but that's what happened. Is they attacked their fans and the content creators because they screwed up. And when they did that, and when they chased that, and when they committed to that as an actual thing, like, and that's the horror of it. It's like, yeah, you guys really committed hard to that. That is some There's some interesting way of approaching it. That's the kind of thing that we're going to get out of any other product they do. And I really feel that for the most part, the only aspects of the studio that are actually doing right now are studios that are further away from the traditional leadership there, because the traditional leadership there has fallen out. And again, I defended him, the actual head, the CEO there. I defended him when everybody was trying to, cancel him and crush him, because I was like, no, he's not a scumbag. He's just a weird, quirky guy. And again, that didn't buy us any favor when stuff hit the fan, because it was always that reactionary, ignorant, hateful kind of way of like, the fans are there and they don't actually care about them. Like, the Larian fans care about the fans of whatever they're making. You could say that for the CDPR people, like, they put a lot of money. They put a lot of money into fixing Cyberpunk. They put a lot of money into making good on their promises, and I think that they've done pretty darn well on that. No Man's Sky put in so much time and effort,
Oh
and
yeah.
they just had a huge patch that just went live. They've rebuilt the entire universe in that game, and again, kudos. This is amazing. These people actually stuck with it. I railed against No Man's Sky for so long, but seeing as how they actually committed to this, it's like, no. They could have taken their money and walked ages ago.
Oh yeah. But
They
they
could
didn't.
they could have said, "Screw you, we got our paychecks. Ha ha ha. We're canceling the live service next week." Moved on to make another thing, and people would have bought it, because that's the way that the player base is right now. But this company doesn't trust this company doesn't like you. This company is not your friend. They don't there's no trust there. There's nothing. It's empty. And again, there's a lot of fans who go, no, they're real. It's like, no, I'm sorry, but they're not. They're really not. Yes, they have a cool IP, but a lot of the people that made that the way that it is, and a lot of the people that made that cool, they're not with the company, or they've kind of walked away from the morals and the ideology that they had that brought them to make that product before.
Yeah.
And if you look at the projects that they're working on now, they're the same kind of dribble, right? Where it's like, hello, fellow gamers, I am your buddy, says the old 65-year-old trying to dress like he's 20,
Yeah.
right? Like that, it's disturbing, and you can't trust it. And if you can't trust it, then yeah. I like that quote from Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe. It's like, if something is not what it is, you know, don't trust them and feel for your hatchet. It's like,
Right.
it's a good way to like know, because when you look at these mega corps, and that's what this is. I mean, it is a big. It's not EA size, but it's a corporation that wants to hurt anybody who impacts their bottom line, when that hurt is like corrective and encouraging in its base format. It's like, hey, you guys are kind of screwing this up. We don't want to see you screw this up. Can you please make this better? And the answer is, oh, yeah, we have an army of lawyers and they're coming for you. It's like, right, right. Well, yeah, that's gone. That's the way it is, and that's going to bleed into everything that they do, and that's the long way around. Sorry, that's why the movie is not good, because they've lost that thing that attaches them to it, that actually makes sense, that actually made you like the game originally. That's been gone for ages now. There were little bits of it dying off in the company, but now, yeah, now they're up against a wall and they're just fizzling, and it's sad.
Yeah. There's a critic here. While you've been saying all that, I was looking for critics that were echoing your sentiment, and one of them is William Bibiani from The Wrap. He says, the biggest problem with Eli Roth's Borderlands isn't that it's bad, it's that it's not interesting enough to be bad. It's mass-produced pablum. And then there are a few others that I sort of lost track of that sort of say exactly what you're saying. It's by people in high positions of power within the movie industry trying to determine what it is that gamers are into
Hmm.
and completely missing the mark. And that seems to be what happened with Borderlands. I mean, our first sign should have been that they cast Kate Blanchett as Lilith. And, Kate Blanchett is one of the greatest actresses that ever lived, right?
Oh yeah.
But I'm not going to cast James Earl Jones at his current age with his current physical build as Thor in the Marvel movies,
I thought you were gonna say Robin, from Batman and Robin. That's what I thought you would say.
Can you imagine James Earl Jones as Robin? That
Like, that would be really funny, and I'm sure there's a really cool concept in there somewhere. But yeah, what you mean is they're not casting them again. These are all good actors and actresses, but as we saw with Bungie, just because you get Peter Dinklage doesn't mean
yeah.
that the Dinklebot works. It doesn't, because it was poorly done and it didn't work.
That's
And
why you
you
have
need
casting
to
directors, man. That's why you have these people so they
exactly, yeah.
can find the perfect fit.
And
Right?
and the story, again, the story, I just oh man, they just hit that wall so badly, and it's so bad,
Yeah.
so bad.
So, I mean, it's just hopefully this doesn't restart the trend. I don't think it will. We have Arcane Season 2 coming out later in November, right?
Hmm.
I think that, yeah, oh my God, dude, I cannot wait. And I know you can't wait more than I can to wait. And then a whole bunch of other stuff coming out very soon. But yeah, this is just horrible. And it's looking like they were needing $40 million opening this weekend in order to have any hope of breaking even. And right now it's looking like the max they're going to make is 15. So it's not good. And hopefully this will be used as the example of what not to do in this current era where it's looking like we're going to switch into a trend towards video game adaptations into movies away from comic book adaptations, which have been the popular thing for the last 20 years. And hopefully this isn't a blip and we don't go back down this bad path. Anyway, moving on from this. Sybe. In Canada, well, up until recently, we had a very popular chain of video game stores called EB Games. What some people in America might not know is that this was just the alternative name for their popular video game outlet, which is GameStop. Why were the differences in names changed? I don't know. Apparently, from what I understand, I mean, I might be wrong. It's been a minute since I've been in Canada and looked at an EB Games, but I was doing some research and it seemed like in the last 3 or 4 years they changed all the EB Games in Canada to just say GameStop. Does that sound right, Cyber? Or have you seen like a EB Games recently?
Oh, it's I'm not positive on that.
Right. Okay. Well, anyway.
I hate to say it, because it because it's like I haven't been there because they don't actually have anything that I want or need, because it's mostly
Yeah.
catered to console players, and
Yeah. And I don't need a foam Minecraft sword. Thank you very much. I'm glad. I'm happy for the people that enjoy that sort of stuff, but I'm good. But anyway, the reason why I bring them up is because for the last, let's see, 2024, carry the 2. It's been 33 years since they started their own personal publication for gamers, where they can be up to date on what's coming out soon and gaming news in general. And I'm of course talking about GameInformer, which up until recently was its own reputable place for like getting exclusive coverage and stuff like that. And it's been a huge part of a lot of people's childhoods. Like for me, for instance, I remember one of my fondest memories was going to we have a book chain store in Canada called Chapters, which I think has just become Indigo right now. And I used to get issues of Game Informer from there instead of from EB Games. And I love reading through those things, man. I loved hearing about all the games that were coming up soon. I remember getting my hopes up because I saw one of the Game Informer covers hinted at the possibility of Metal Gear Solid 4 coming to the Xbox 360, which I was desperate for because at the time I didn't have a PS3. And then, of course, we found out that it never came to any other system. And that is still the case to this day. Hopefully, Konami gets their crap together and puts Metal Gear Solid 4 on the PC as a part of the next Master Collection. But anyway, that's a separate issue. But yeah, it's been a huge part of a variety of different gamers' lives, and they used to subscribe to it. And anytime you go into a GameStop or EB Games, you'd always have somebody saying, "Hey, you want to subscribe to Game Informer?" And you'd say, "Hell no, just give me my freaking game." But like that. But that's just for people that are sort of newer. And there was always a time when we used to pick those things up regularly. And with that said, I say also with a heavy heart that this past week the publication has been shut down. Primarily because they were focused on producing physical media in an era where that doesn't really sell as much. I mean, they did have an online presence, no doubt, but the way they were operating their outfit didn't seem to be very profitable. They had very small numbers of people still working on the project, and it appeared that at the very end, last week, even people that were still a part of Game Informer didn't seem to know that they were going to be laid off and that the whole operation was going to be shut down. There was a surprise meeting. I'm reading this according to Kotaku, and they were given no notice that this was going to happen. What is sort of weird, though, Seb, is that along with this, which is horrible enough as it is, the entire backlog of Game Informer's coverage on their website is gone. Like, you would think that there would have been at least some sort of an attempt to preserve a lot of the exclusive coverage that they've gotten over the years, which is an important part of...
Max. This is the game industry we're talking about. The idea of conservation is completely foreign and alien idea. What are you talking about? What do you mean conserve? No, this is immediately go and buy the next thing or else.
Yeah, and then just forget that that thing existed, even if it defined your childhood.
What are you talking about?
Shh, don't talk about that. What are you talking about?
It never existed. They were always about doing the physical sales in the stores. I'm being cruel.
Yeah, obviously. I'd be surprised if anybody didn't realize we were being facetious. Oh, and by the way, we still have more to say on that subject, but I'll just finish by saying this. It sort of annoys me because recently I've been doing some deep dives into some older games that are really important to the gaming medium. And one of the ones that I covered very recently was a game called Eco. And anybody who knows anything about Eco knows how important that game was to the development of video games as an art form. When I was doing research into old coverage of that game, I found that the majority of the articles that did really in-depth coverage about that game's development are from publications that are no longer around, and you had to go through really convoluted methods just to get your hands on that old material,
Mm-hmm.
And when that sort of thing, I see that thing continuing to happen with the likes of Game Informer and all the stuff that I imagine will probably be valuable to me when I do other games in the future, it really frustrates me. I just wish that there was more of an effort to create an archive of this stuff so that if any sort of historian of gaming, which, ideally I'd like to try and create some sort of way for any sort of gamer or anybody interested in the medium can go back and check that sort of stuff out. It's really frustrating, but yeah, I don't know what the hell was going on, why they felt that that was the best way to go about things, but anyway, that's all I have to say about it. It's very sad. Sai, do you have any history with Game Informer or any thoughts on this whole situation?
No, in the sense that I have never, like, it has been almost 2 decades since I supported any platform or media type that was
Yeah.
and that was always, like, for me, that it was mostly PC gamer. I did collect other things. I did go out of my way, and about, what was that, 16 years ago, I did see a cover of a game magazine that I was like, oh, I really want that cover. I tried to find it, tried to get it, but it was gone. Ultimately, it just boils down to the idea and the concept that they were never on our side. And when I say our side, I don't mean that in any current day modern argument or thought process people might have.
Yeah.
When I say that, I mean literally, quite literally, they were never on the side of the video game players. They were always on the side of, hey, let's make money for ourselves, let's make money for our deals. We're not about holding ourselves to any level of credibility or morality or rule set or anything like that. We are about getting as many pats on the back and as much cash in our pocket as we can. That's what drives everything they do. And I saw it all the way back then. I saw it going all the way back to was it CES? The like the
Consumer electronics
pre
store? Yeah.
yeah, the pre E3 days, going down to these conventions and talking with the people. I would always see passion in the game developers. I remember seeing and talking with Todd Howard once before when I was really, really young. Um, but when it comes down to those websites, they always felt like talking with somebody who sells like used cars for a living. And that might be an
Yeah.
old trope. That might be not an accurate trope anymore. I don't know.
No, I think it still is.
Yeah, but I felt like it was just like slimy people who were trying to find an in and then were using that to gain power. And no matter and you look at it now and you go, well, that's exactly what happened. These people trying to gain power to push their own like thing. It wasn't ever about like trying to improve or to like make gaming better or to hold people accountable. There were a few people who did that, and I'm not saying that it was all not. I'm saying that there were people who were trying to do the right thing, and those voices got showed the door often in most cases the fastest, because those people were interfering with the other people's game to make money and to get pats on the back and to get praise because um, it was all about egotism again for the majority of the field. So looking back at it, I look at this website and I go, most of the people that were working there weren't good people. Like the vast majority of the people that were working there weren't good people. They weren't out to do the right thing or to communicate the right thing. They were out to make a buck, often at the expense of somebody else, and that was about it. And again, really have to emphasize, we've had guests on the show. We've had there's a wonderful lady that we've had on the show in the past where she was in this industry and she was trying and she had eventually got out of the industry because her trying to bring a sense of like nobility was just like she was just spat in the face so hard so many times that she just left the industry because it was like there was no saving it.
Sure.
it was
Yeah.
it was that was the majority. So yeah, I'm not saying that I'm celebrating everybody getting laid off or getting fired, or that I'm in the side or in the rooting for the big mega corporation. I'm not. And I don't think that every mega corporation is bad, but I think in most cases they are, and this is a case where it's like, yep, kind of saw it coming.
Yeah.
Long ranty answer. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. No, it's just, I mean, it's appropriate given the situation. But yeah, it was inevitable. I just wish that there was. Oh my God, somebody wants to show off the size of their engine outside. Uh, it's just sad. Because GameInformer, it's just such an iconic brand,
Yeah.
nonetheless. That I just wish that there was some way that maybe they could have sold off or maybe incorporated the team yeah, as a part of something
And
else. But yeah,
I do think that they were probably slightly better than the average. I will say that. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
Game Informer was slightly better than the average, and and those people I'm sad to see go.
yeah.
But I honestly think that if they're good at what they're doing, it's like probably making your own thing is probably the smarter idea.
Yeah, because that seems to be the way that it, a lot of people tend to go nowadays, is just to become their own pundit on YouTube, and they just have as much success there as they do working under a major brand. So Anyway, I wish the staff there all the best. I'd much rather read anything that you guys have to say than, anything from IGN or Kotaku or Polygon or any of those types. So kudos and thank you for all the memories. All right. That's all I got, Sab. What you got?
Thank you for all the fish.
Yeah, right.
So, ladies and gentlemen, technology is a cool thing.
It's awesome when it works. And then when it
Yeah, when
doesn't,
it
you're just
works.
you curse its very existence.
And I'm hoping that we're going to see more of this. But the telekinetic technology is still in its early format, really still is, but it's getting there.
It's
It's getting there, and
yeah.
it's getting really, really cool. And I am so excited for this. Small story from The Guardian, about a Twitch streamer that is using her brain and a mind reader to start to play games. And again, I think that this is, um, people don't realize how important this tech is going to be, and it's going to be so important. This is going to be so cool and so good, and eventually this is going to be the new norm. And the why and the how is because, um, people are so capable of figuring stuff out. And I've seen this technology work in the past. Years and years and years ago, before the channel, there was a mind reading set of ears that would read your brainwaves. And it wasn't perfect, it was very rough. It had like three formats, but it would read your brainwaves and then it would do ears up, wiggle, and then down. And you would just train it to kind of, or just train yourself to think in the way that it created the brainwaves to make it do that. That is such an early implementation of this technology, and it took quite a lot of like figuring out. And it was one of the weirdest things. I have seen them in person like 5 times. 4 of those times I was at a gaming slash anime convention. You'd expect to see those there. The one time that I saw it out in the real world, Ash and I were at the movies, and I was literally telling him about the technology. Turned around, the girl behind us in the line was wearing one. I have never seen them
Yeah.
out in public outside of anime conventions and gaming conventions. And that was so very surreal and weird, and it was really cool. But yeah, this technology is moving forward. There are a lot of people who are kind of skeptical and kind of like, "Oh, I don't think so," but trust me, trust me, trust me. This technology is going to make a huge difference. It's in its early format, so I wouldn't necessarily throw anything behind like the early developers. It's like any early development technology. There's going to be a lot of losers and a few big winners, and we don't even know if those are going to be around. Um, you know, Ford did not invent the car. He streamlined its creation. He didn't invent it. A lot of people think that oh, it was Henry Ford who invented the combustion engine and created the vehicle. The idea of like
Yeah.
a car driving around. It's like, no, no, no. He perfected the creation and distribution of mass created models. When he was a kid, he saw a vehicle, and it was the first time he'd ever seen it. And that's what set him off on that journey of creating engines and improving them and refining them and then create them on mass and all this kind of stuff. And it's brilliant. It's so smart. It's so cool. But yeah, this technology is coming, and I am so excited for it because this is the technology that will get, probably before we get like full dive technology. Might get
Oh
full
yeah.
dive technology first, but I suspect strongly that this is going to come first and be perfected first. Then we're going to get that deep dive, full dive technology, and then we're probably at some point going to get the chip in the actual brain, and this will probably be part of it in some way, shape, or form. I'm not saying that the chip is good. I'm just explaining how technology will advance and evolve. But
Mhm.
yeah, why use a controller when you can literally just think it and have it happen? and it's going to be really, really cool until somebody goes, I really want to like hold on to a stick while I'm playing my game in my head, laying back on my couch, and then they'll have a stick, and then you'll just move around the stick while you're mostly thinking with your mind.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's the way it's going to be. So really excited, really cool. Look up this story if you're interested in reading up about it. It's a new brief article that kind of covers it, but yeah, the ability to control the game with your mind, that is real tech. It is coming. It's going to take a while for it to get perfected, but once it is, I think it's going to be really cool.
I,
And
mhm.
you might prefer something like this where it's like it's read only. It's not like the the brain chips are going to be read and write. This is only read, so it's only going to read your thoughts. It's not going to add anything to it. So yeah, going to be interesting.
Yeah. I'm looking at the article right now, and the subtitle for it says, Perry Carriol helps Rich Pele prepare to play Elden Ring with his mind. Yeah, that'll be a whole new challenge to add on to,
Mhm.
those challenge runners that play Elden Ring. Some play it with the dance pad, some play it with a Guitar Hero controller. This will be the whole new level of challenge that they need to adopt. So I got a prediction. I think all those rumors about Half-Life 3, which I forgot to put on the list,
Mhm.
that have been happening. Well, the idea is that anytime a Half-Life game comes out, Valve wants to do it with a new piece of technology. I think that once this becomes cheap enough, they'll release this because they want people to feel what it's like to actually have a head crab stick to your face with the with the things that you put around your head. I don't know. I'm just joking, but yeah, it's really impressive and it's amazing. Like I've seen some of these videos as well. It's imperceivable to know that
Mhm.
science has gotten to this point where it can react to something seemingly as subjective as your mind and focus it in a way that you can manipulate technology. It's something I sort of get sick kind of thinking about and contemplating, not necessarily because it's bad. It's just I lack the qualifications to be able to wrap my head around that. But anyways, it's really neat. Anyway, what else do we got?
Well, I just to finish up on the previous
Sure,
story,
sure.
I want to point out that the writer uh, Rikai or Riki, pardon me not knowing how to pronounce Japanese correctly, um, Kawaharara, and again, apologies for not pronouncing it correctly. He's the guy who created Sword Art Online and Excel World. Um,
Okay.
the actual novelist. He wrote about this kind of technology back in 2009,
Hmm.
and he called it almost perfectly.
Yeah.
So everything that we have developed up to this point in the not just the concept of it, not like like, oh, Star Trek, they use these little handheld things to communicate with, that's cell phones. No, 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 no. The process in which people learn how to do things within the virtual world with body parts that they don't have, the process of that creation that he wrote about very detailed in his novel, is the actual way people are learning to use extrasensory technology that gives you a thing that you didn't have before. Like it's literally adding those ears to your head, or giving you a tail, or giving you wings. The process in which he wrote about it, in the way that the brain worked and created it, absolutely nailed it. And that's so cool. People should be like, really like, well, that is awesome. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's a very small thing that I know most people aren't going to get.
Yes.
Um, but still, I find it so cool.
Mhm.
It's absolutely cool. So, and then the last story we got is saving the video games. Stop killing
Sh-
video games.
Shout out to Ross Scott, one of my favorite YouTubers.
Yes, and shame on Pirate Software, who
Uh,
is
okay.
one of my favorite content creators online.
Yeah.
I really like him. Turns out I knew people he grew up with a lot. I've known of his dad, and I think I've actually talked to him once or twice. So I like the guy. I do. But this, and this is where, like, I'm going to get into the criticism of the criticism, which I know is sort of like, if I'm criticizing criticism, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. But yeah, let's lay it out. So the first video done was stop killing games. And this is an actual petition that is started in Europe. I linked it on our YouTube channel. I sent it out to everybody that I knew who lives in Europe, where it's like they're trying to push forward a bill to demand that if you sell a video game in Europe, and it's a live service video game, and for whatever reason, at the point where you're like, yeah, no, we're done hosting this, it's not profitable anymore, you have you're duty bound from the minute that you create that game to basically, and I'm using heavy use of air quotes, leave it for people to do WTF that they need to do with it to make it work. Essentially, that's the short and skinny of it. There is, of course, and this is where the criticism from Pirate Bay comes in, is no, what they're asking isn't to make it do it properly in the way that it'll help developers, and this will be a burden on indie developers, and this will be a burden on this and that and the blah, blah, blah. So we don't support the bill because it's not being done in the right way thing. It's like, that's the whole skinny of the story, and what we're talking about it beyond the fact that this is here. Please go and sign this, and I will handle all of the criticism from Pirate Software by saying, Pirate, it's not about getting it perfect on the initial draft. A lot of laws go through multiple iterations, and good laws are done so intelligently, full of wisdom, getting people involved in the industry to come forward and say, here are the problems with the way that the bill currently sits. You need to adjust to make room for XYZ. And then once you have that, then that'll get us closer to the thing that actually makes it work. And that's the process of government, that when it's not run by complete and total grasshoppers, locusts, where they just come in and destroy everything in an attempt to, like, make things work. That's not the first step that is going to happen. The first step is to just get the process going so that you can then tweak the process as you go. Because what we have currently, and what I used when I was talking with Max about this earlier, is we literally have a forest fire that is literally destroying works of art, story, lore, IPs. It is just burning through and destroying everything. Complaining that, no, we need to fight the fire in the right way, so let's go back to the drawing room. We're going to come up with a better plan to fight the fire. It's like, don't call back the people who are putting out the fire. It's like, right. yeah, sure. They could use an A1 style nozzle with the triple spray instead of just the spray that they're currently using, and that'll put the fire out way better. It's like, okay, go get that and bring that here. Don't recall the firefighters fighting the fire. Like, and again, I know there's more nuance to it, but it drives me mental, because this isn't the first time that I've seen somebody come out, say, hey, I have this proposition to demand our government to do something to help fix this very severe problem. And the first guy who speaks up is, no, man, no, don't sign that. Don't sign that, because he's not doing it in the right way. If y'all listen to me and how I want to do it, then it'll go through the right way, and then we won't have this problem anymore. Right. Do you have a bill ready? No, man, no. Maybe I could get around to it next year. Then please either shut up or sign the document. Because right now, what you're doing is not helping. And that's what's happening in a lot of these cases. It's like, of course, the bill as is isn't perfect. Of course, it's got holes in it that can be probably, used and abused, but that's what amendments are for.
Okay.
That's what.
So yes, yeah. Syb, I generally agree with your argument.
Yes.
And but I will play just devil's advocate for
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Pirate here for just a second. I think that in a number of other circumstances, his unwillingness to go along with this would be fine. Because even if, like you're saying, like just get the ball rolling, uh, so that way we can get ahead of the game and make sure that things don't go down the wrong path. Well, even in
Hmm.
doing that, you can make mistakes that are irreversible, right? And
Yeah.
maybe they're like, but with the way that Ross Scott is going about it and the way that he's presented it, I don't see, like, maybe there is a problem with it, but I'm not seeing
Hmm.
how the way he's presenting it right now is necessarily going to lead to like the destruction of all live service games, which I think would be
Yeah.
the worst case scenario. And personally, I don't like live service games, but I don't want them to go away. Like there are some good examples of live service games. Like I think one of the examples that Pirate Software cited was Final Fantasy 14. I've never played
Hmm.
it, but I know a lot of people that really love it, and
Yeah.
it's important to preserve that. But I think what's important to establish as far as common law goes is the notion that when somebody spends money on something, they have some sort of right to be able to access that software in some form. And once we have that general principle established, then we can sort out the details on a case by case basis. So,
Hmm.
for instance, one other thing that Pirate Software mentions in the video that I think is actually a very good point, like a point that he actually rests a lot of his criticism in, is like, okay, well, what if there's a day that comes where League of Legends isn't popular anymore, people stop playing it, and the company doesn't want to support it anymore? Well, if it were to continue on in some way, they would have to spend money on preventing cheaters from accessing it, which is the whole point of why they have the live service angle in the first place, so that they can prevent cheaters and so that it can continue to function as a multiplayer game. I understand that. But just because we haven't really been able to establish what we would do in that specific case doesn't necessarily mean that we should override the entire project right now. Because that can take, if you go on a case by case basis and try to account for all hypotheticals, then you're just not going to be able to get anywhere. And even with a case like a game like League of Legends, which is strictly online and you can invite in a lot of cheaters, at least give consumers a way to be able to set up their own private server so they can play with their friends and extend that outward and then be able to detect who might be using cheating software. And I imagine that there would be ways that you can create user-friendly interfaces for people that want to be able to play games like this to be able to offset stuff like that, just as long as there's some way that you can access the game that you paid for, right? Just having that general
Hmm.
principle in place, I think, is fine. And then you can go on a case by case basis from that. And hell, maybe like, the sort of central game that Ross Scott started his whole campaign off of was Ubisoft's The Crew. Maybe you have to take away certain elements that were inherent to the live service model, but you can preserve the game in a single player function in other ways. Like I think the big selling point of the game was that you can go across a scaled down version of the United States in your car. You can do that in like a single player mode without some of the multiplayer elements and still have fun. And then keep the multiplayer elements that are able to be facilitated without servers and like you know. So yeah, I understand Pirate Software's arguments, and I think they are definitely important to keep in consideration when it comes to establishing common law surrounding games. But I don't think that there are enough to warrant trying to push this forward. Now, if people have genuine arguments against why Ross's arguments and his ducks aren't all in an order, that's I want to hear those arguments because I don't want this to be messed up. But as things are right now, I don't think the argument is as strong on Pirate Software's side at the moment. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it works. It works. And I think, and again, I think you nailed it on the head. And I want to say it's like, look, we like, you don't have to just throw out everything right from the get-go, and that's what I immediately picked up on, and it kind of soured me because I've been in a lot of circumstances where uh long time ago I used to be a chef, and there was more than once when I was able to take a dish that was really poorly done and fix it completely, and other people just wanted to throw it out and start over from scratch.
Hmm.
It's like, yeah, that would be good, but that's a lot of waste. That's a lot of waste. And if I just got rid of like 5-10% of it and then worked with it, I could fix it. In most cases, I could fix it to the point where it was like it was not only good, it was raved about. And again, it's like, yeah, in a world where you don't have to worry about that, it's like, yeah, and in this case, I don't see it as necessarily like, supplies or stuff. It's really the question of time. It's like get if we don't hold the threat of like, all right, you guys either can't make these games and sell them in, half of the world, or you have to be prepared to allow the community to have access to the data at some point. That's going to make them design games differently for in most cases. They're either going to say, okay, well, let's not make a bad game that just fails immediately and we have to surrender, and then we end up losing a lot of control over like, IP and stuff like that. That makes them go, okay, well, we need to make sure that we make this right, and we actually need to like put more effort into making the games last longer. And that's the biggest thing. It's like, if we had more of this, then we'd see more care. We'd see teams put onto games permanently. Maybe it's just a handful of people at the company who then utilize like, some work with modders in the community to like continue to do updates, or or they come up with a different thing to tweak it in a different way. And it's like, probably should do that.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents anyways.
Yeah. Anyways, guys, that does it for, well, just one last shout out to Ross Scott. Guys, if you aren't subscribed to him on YouTube, his channel, Accursed Farms, is fantastic, not just for the stuff that he's doing in regards to preservation of games, but his usual content where he reviews old games, and especially, probably my all-time favorite YouTube series, Freeman's Mind, is absolute genius. In case you guys don't know what that is, it's Ross playing Half-Life, but he's narrating his playthrough as if he's speaking the thoughts of Gordon Freeman, which is appropriate because Gordon Freeman is a silent protagonist. And some of the stuff that he comes up with, that he gets him to say in those videos, is not just hilarious, but it's very, very intelligent. So I highly recommend you go.
Does he have that echoey voice that makes it feel like you're listening to somebody like doing a dreamscape, or like an internal monologue
No,
thing?
no, it's
Oh,
not. No,
that's
it's not like
that's too
that.
bad. Oh,
Yeah.
oh man, he really missed that. I do love that there's a lot of people who they get onto some like online game or something like that, and they set that up so
Oh,
that they
it's
have the normal voice, and then they have the echoey like internal monologue voice thing going on, and then they say something. The coolest thing is when I see the people do this in like some of the chat game stuff, where it's like the guy's like, "Hey guys, what's going on?" And then like it switches to that internal monologue. I really hope they like me. Oh, these people are so cool. Oh, I hope they don't
yeah.
realize that I'm a bit of a psychopath. And
Mhm.
people are like, "You're a bit of a psychopath?" Like, "Oh yeah, no, no. What are you talking about? Oh my God, can they read my mind? What's going on?" And it's like, I find that humor so funny. It's very slapstick and silly, but God, I love that humor.
Yeah.
It's really hilarious when it's done right.
One of my favorite jokes in any comedy movie was from Austin Powers, where he completely fails to do inner monologue. He's like, "My God, Vanessa's got a fabulous body. How do I tell the Ministry of Defense that due to the unfreezing process, I've lost all inner monologue? I hope I didn't say that out loud just now."
Um,
Yeah.
there's another great clip of that. What is that? What is that from? Oh yeah, it's the Green Hornet reboot that they did.
Oh,
Green
really?
Hornet, for those, yeah, they did a Green Hornet reboot with
Seth
I don't
Rogen.
like the actor Seth Rogen. Yeah, he's kind of an idiot. But um there's this moment where he's like putting everything together in his mind, and he thinks he's doing it in a fraction of a second, like his buddy does. But then the villain is just sitting there going, So you've been sitting here for 5 minutes with a stupid look on your face, and I know that you're trying to piece this all together, but you're really just an idiot. I was like, oh, that is so funny. Just having him like sit there is like, yes, I could put all this together in a fraction of a second, just like he can. And then turns out, no, he can't.
Right.
He can't do that. And
Yeah, I dig that type of humor too, dude. We should done more
it's
often.
perfect. Yeah.
Anyway, that does it for this episode of Maximum News, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. Man, I wasn't expecting to get through that. I haven't been feeling very well. I mean, some of you listening to this probably already know that, but yeah, it's just this last week has been hell. But yeah, I'm glad that we were able to get through it. Saib, thank you for doing this with me as always. You have anything you want to plug before we're done?
No, we're trying to settle out life stuff first before we start doing hardcore more content. But I will get there. I've been coming up with some ideas, so yeah, we've got stuff coming.
Nice. You guys can find me on all the regular forms of social media, just at Max Derrat. I'll link that in the description box below. Make sure to like, share, subscribe. You know the drill. Anyways, I'm off to bed, man. I'm so tired. I will talk to you guys next week. Until then, I want to remind you, as always, and as per usual, stay yellow.